I've taken hundreds of Ubers in my life, especially during late-night shifts at the hospital where I work. I'm used to exhausted drivers, weird conversations, even the occasional car that smells like old fries. But nothing prepared me for the night I got into an Uber with a driver who never blinked. And I don't mean he blinked rarely. I mean he didn't blink one single time during the entire 40-minute ride. It was January in Cleveland, frigid enough that even my eyelashes felt stiff from the cold. My shift ended at 2:13 a.m., the emergency room unusually quiet after a night of flu cases and a couple of drunk fights. I stepped outside, pulled my jacket tight, and called an Uber because my car had been in the shop for 3 days. Within seconds, a black Toyota Camry accepted my ride. Driver's name Carlton. 5 stars. Over 3,000 trips. Good enough for me. The car pulled up exactly 2 minutes later, rolling to a stop with an unnervingly smooth movement like the tires were gliding instead of driving. When I opened the back door, the first thing I noticed was the heat. It blasted out like the inside of an oven. I stepped in quickly, grateful for the warmth, until I realized it wasn't normal warmth. It felt damp, heavy, like the air inside the car was used, like someone had been breathing way too hard in it just moments before. "Cold night," the driver said. His voice was soft, flat, emotionless, like a recording that had been played one too many times. I responded with a polite "yeah" and buckled in. Then I looked at the rearview mirror for the first time, and that's when I saw it. His eyes wide, glassy, reflecting too much of the dashboard light. He was staring at me, not checking the road, not glancing back, staring, and the whites of his eyes were too bright, almost swollen. I assumed maybe he was just doing that awkward thing some drivers do, trying to make conversation but overdoing the eye contact. So I looked out the window and pretended to text. A minute passed. Then 2, I checked the mirror again. He was still staring at me, not blinking, not looking at the road, but the car was moving perfectly straight, perfectly centered in the lane, as if guided by rails. I swallowed hard. "Everything okay?" I asked. His mouth stretched into a smile. "Too quick, too wide. I'm just making sure you get home safe," he said. But he didn't blink. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he had a medical condition. Maybe he was wearing contacts. Maybe he was trained to keep constant eye contact as some bizarre customer service tactic. But I couldn't shake the wrongness of it. The car's interior smelled faintly metallic, like cold blood or pennies. The heater hummed in an irregular pattern, almost like breathing, slow inhale, long exhale. And the driver, his posture was too straight, too rigid. Most drivers slump or adjust their seat or crack their knuckles. But he sat like a mannequin, spine perfectly straight, shoulders stiff, only moving his hands on the wheel with robotic precision. Every few minutes, his mouth twitched into that same unnatural smile, like he was practicing the expression, but hadn't quite mastered the human version of it. We hit the highway. No other cars, just miles of silent black asphalt stretching into nothingness. My phone buzzed, making me jump. It was a text from my coworker, Jenna. "You good? You left your badge?" I started typing a reply when the driver spoke again. "You work in the emergency room," he said. My fingers froze. "Yeah," I said cautiously. "How did you know?" He didn't look away. "I can smell it." He said it like it was the most normal thing in the world. I didn't respond. I couldn't. He continued driving like he hadn't said something completely insane, like he hadn't just made every hair on my body stand up. Another few minutes passed before I realized something else. The route on the Uber app didn't match where we were going. We should have taken exit 19 toward my neighborhood. Instead, we blew right past it at full speed. I think you missed the exit," I said. He didn't blink, didn't nod, just said, "No, no, no." "Why no?" I asked, my voice tightening, still staring. "I know a better way," he whispered. My heart dropped. I reached for the door handle, testing it gently. It didn't move. Child lock. I glanced at the speedometer. We were going 78 miles per hour. Too fast to jump out, even if the child lock wasn't on. Can you unlock the doors? I asked, trying to sound calm. Silence. Then that smile again. You shouldn't leave, he said. Something about the way he said it made my stomach flip. Not threatening, worse. Like he genuinely believed he was helping me by keeping me inside. I pulled out my phone, trying to discreetly hit the emergency button in the Uber app. Before I could even tap it, he said, "That won't work." My blood turned cold. He hadn't looked at my phone. He couldn't have seen it. I angled the screen away, but he knew. I disabled that, he added softly. My hand shook. You can't do that, I whisper. His smile widened. I can do a lot of things. The highway grew darker. The exits became farther apart. The road curved into wooded areas with no streetlights. That's when I noticed something else. His face wasn't moving with the bumps of the road. The car jostled slightly on a rough stretch of pavement, but his head stayed perfectly still, like it wasn't attached by anything flexible. And his eyes, still open, still staring, reflected the passing lights with a glossy, almost wet shine. Are you okay? I forced myself to ask. He didn't respond. He just kept driving deeper into nowhere. At this point, my heart was racing so fast I felt dizzy. I knew I needed to get out. So I did something desperate. I unbuckled my seatbelt. The sound was tiny, barely a click, but the driver's head snapped up a fraction, and his lips formed a thin line. Put that back on, he said sharply. I froze, my hands still gripping the seatbelt. It's unsafe, he added. Then let me out, I said. Not yet. That was it. I decided if I didn't act soon, I might never get out of this car. So I slid my phone into my sleeve and quietly dialed 911, leaving the line open, hoping dispatch would hear something, anything. The driver didn't react. For the first time all night, I felt a tiny bit of hope. Then he spoke again. You really think that will help you? My breath caught. He knew. Somehow he knew. And then he finally blinked. But it wasn't a normal blink. It was slow, too slow, like his eyelids were sticking together, dragging over his eyeballs. And when they reopened, the whites of his eyes looked darker, almost bruised. I can smell your fear, he said softly. Not taunting, almost curious, like he was taking notes. I pressed myself against the door, trying to control my breathing, trying not to think about how far we were from civilization. How about we play a game, he whispered. No, I said, but he ignored me. It's called Guess Who I Am. My skin crawled. I'm not playing any game, but he continued anyway. I'm not Colton, he said. My heart stopped. What did you say? He smiled. Slow, unnatural. I borrowed him. I felt the world tilt. What do you mean you borrowed him? I demanded. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he finally turned his head slightly toward the road, though his eyes stayed fixed on me like they were glued in place. He didn't need his eyes anymore, he said calmly. My stomach lurched. You're lying, he shrugged, his movements stiff and marionette-like. He screamed for a while. Humans always do. That was enough. I reached for the window switch and slammed my thumb against it repeatedly. Nothing. He chuckled low and ragged. You really shouldn't try that. I didn't stop. I clawed at the lock, at the handle, at anything. The child lock held firm. You're going to hurt yourself, he said. I ignored him. I shifted my weight, ready to throw my entire body against the window, when suddenly the car slowed. Not gently, not gradually. It decelerated like something massive had stepped onto the road. Then it stopped completely in the middle of the dark forest highway. Engine idling, no lights ahead, no cars behind, no sound but my own shaking breath. He inhaled deeply, like he was breathing me in. We are here, he whispered. Where? He didn't answer. He just tilted his head at an unnatural angle until his neck made a faint cracking sound. Then slowly he reached his hand toward the passenger seat, feeling around for something. I didn't wait to see what it was. I braced myself and slammed my body against the door with everything I had. The glass didn't shatter, but it cracked. A long, splintering crack from top to bottom. His smile faded. Don't do that, he said, voice lower than before. I did it again. The crack deepened a third time. The glass finally gave way, collapsing outward. Cold night air rushed in. I grabbed the jagged edge and climbed out, scraping my hands open, falling onto the asphalt. I heard the driver's door click open behind me, then footsteps fast. I ran. I didn't think, didn't look back, just ran into the thick woods, branches tearing at my clothes, feet slipping on frozen leaves. Behind me, I heard him crashing through the brush, erratic, too fast, like he didn't understand how legs were supposed to work. He called out my name. My name. I hadn't told him my name. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs threatened to give out. Finally, I saw lights. A house at the edge of the tree line. I sprinted toward it and pounded on the door. An older man answered, confused and terrified by my appearance. Before I could explain, a voice echoed from the woods. Too close, too wrong. The man pulled me inside and locked the door. We called police. By the time they searched the area, the car was gone. No tracks, no sign of a struggle, no driver, no Colton. The Uber account was deleted minutes after my call. It's been 6 months. I haven't taken a ride-share since. Every time I think about that night, one thought eats at me. Whatever was driving that car, it wasn't human. And it's still out there looking for another passenger who won't notice that the driver never blinks. I used to drive Uber full-time when I was saving up to move out of my cramped studio apartment. Night shifts pay the best, especially near downtown Chicago, where the bars closed at 3 a.m. Most nights were a mix of drunk couples, tired office workers, and the occasional weird passenger. Nothing I couldn't handle. But one night I picked up someone who didn't speak a single word the entire ride. It wasn't unusual for a passenger to stay quiet. But this man's silence wasn't normal. It felt deliberate, focused, and it was the way he sat in my back seat, too still, too rigid, that made my skin crawl. That was the first night I truly understood that some people or things use silence as a weapon. It was a Thursday night in mid-November, cold enough that the air bit through my thin jacket each time I stepped outside. The city was settling into its late-night quiet phase. My last passenger had been a cheerful college kid who tipped well and wished me a safe night. I checked my phone. Next ride, pick up on Jackson and Wells. Destination, North Riverside, about a 32-minute drive. Good. One long ride could finish my night. When I pulled up to the pickup spot, I didn't see anyone at first. The street corner was empty except for a flickering street lamp and a row of old brick buildings. Then I saw him. A man standing completely still, half in the shadows between two buildings. He didn't move when my headlights swept across him. Didn't lift his phone, didn't wave, just stood there like he'd been placed in the darkness on purpose. I figured maybe he didn't realize his ride had arrived. So I tapped my horn lightly. He turned his head toward me. Slowly. Too slowly, like his neck was resisting the movement. Then he stepped forward. His steps were measured, controlled, as if he was counting each one. He wore an oversized black hoodie pulled low over his face, hands tucked into the sleeves. I unlocked the car doors. He opened the back passenger door and slid in without a word. "Hey there," I said in my usual driver voice. "Cold night, huh?" Silence. He just sat there facing the back of my seat but still casting a shadow over his face. I started the trip anyway. Some passengers were weird. That was normal. But within 2 minutes of driving, I realized there was nothing normal about this man. The first thing I noticed was his breathing. It wasn't steady. It was patent. 2 shallow inhales, then 1 long exhale, repeating over and over with mechanical consistency. No fidgeting, no shifting in the seat, no adjusting the hoodie, just breathing like a machine. The second thing I noticed, he wasn't wearing shoes. His feet, bare, pale, slightly dirty, rested flat on the floor mat. In November in Chicago at nearly 3 a.m., a cold crawled through me that had nothing to do with the weather. I glanced at him in the mirror, trying not to be obvious, but he was already looking at me directly. His face still shadowed, but I could see the faint glint of eyes staring through the darkness. I whipped my attention back to the road. "Everything okay back there?" I asked, voice tight. No answer. Just that strange breathing pattern. 2 short inhales, 1 long exhale. Repeat. I cleared my throat. "You headed home from work?" "Nothing." I tried again, or coming from somewhere. Silence. Not just silence. A heavy silence. The kind that fills the car like fog pressing into your skin. I told myself maybe he was drunk. Maybe high. Maybe just socially anxious. But something about his stillness made those explanations feel like lies I was telling myself. 10 minutes into the ride, I noticed something strange in the navigation. The app showed our route moving correctly, but the GPS arrow kept flickering. Not in a glitchy way, more like something was interfering with it. The arrow shifted left and right rapidly. Even though the car was moving straight, the passenger didn't react. He didn't react to anything. Not the bumps in the road, not the cold air blasting from the slightly broken AC vent, not even when a police siren screamed past us going the opposite direction. Just the same breathing, 2 inhales, 1 exhale. Then, unexpectedly, he leaned forward. Not much, just enough for his head to be inches behind mine. His breath hit the back of my neck, warmer than it should have been. I stiffened, gripping the wheel tighter. "You good, man?" I asked. He didn't respond. He only tilted his head slightly, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. Then he whispered something barely audible. 1 word. "Stop." I swallowed. "It's a highway," I said. "Can't stop here." He lifted his hand slowly, too slowly, and pointed toward an upcoming exit. "Stop," he repeated, this time a little louder. I didn't want to, but something about the tone, empty, hollow, unnatural, made my entire body go cold. So I took the exit. The road at the bottom of the exit ramp was deserted. Old warehouses lined the street like sleeping giants, windows boarded up, graffiti tagging every reachable surface. I pulled onto the shoulder and put the car in park. The passenger didn't move, didn't open the door, didn't speak. He just stared at the back of my head. The silence stretched so long I could hear my own heartbeat pounding inside my ears. Finally, I forced myself to ask, "This is your stop?" No answer. He just kept breathing. 2 short inhales, 1 long exhale. Then he slowly, agonizingly slowly lifted his head until I could see his eyes in the mirror. They weren't wide, they weren't narrowed, they were just wrong, like he didn't know how to use them. I reached for my phone, pretending to check the app, but really considering calling 911. Before I could even unlock it, the passenger spoke again. This time, 2 words. "He's here." A chill shot through me. "Who's here?" I asked. No answer. Instead, he turned his head slowly, too slowly, toward the warehouse to our right. I followed his gaze. At first, I saw nothing but the darkened building, paint peeling from its walls, a broken light buzzing weakly near the roof. Then I saw movement. Something. Someone standing near the corner of the warehouse, still watching. A figure, tall, thin, too thin. I blinked hard, thinking maybe my eyes were playing tricks on me. But when I looked again, the figure had moved closer. Not walking, just there. Closer. Like reality skipped a frame. My throat tightened. I locked the doors automatically. The sound of the locks clicking echoed too loudly inside the silent car. The passenger didn't react. He just kept staring at the figure. I whispered, "Do you know him?" No answer. Just 2 inhales, 1 exhale. I tried to sound calm. "Hey man, if this is some kind of joke, it's not funny, nothing." The figure outside didn't move, didn't breathe from what I could tell, just stood there facing the car. Then the passenger did something that nearly made me scream. He leaned forward again, bringing his face inches from mine, and exhaled long and slow, directly on my ear. His breath was freezing, not cold, freezing. I jerked away, heart crashing against my ribs. "What the hell are you doing?" he whispered. "Don't look away." I didn't want to. I didn't want to look at the figure outside, but my eyes drifted toward the warehouse anyway. The figure was closer, much closer, standing at the edge of the sidewalk now, no more than 20 feet away. I could finally make out some details. Pale skin, no hair, arms too long for its body, fingers dangling like wet branches, and its head. It was tilted at the exact same angle as the passenger in my back seat, like they were mirroring each other. My breath caught. "Who is that?" I whispered. The passenger didn't answer in words. He just raised his hand slowly, shaking, and pointed at the figure. The figure raised its arm in the same motion, perfectly synchronized. I nearly threw up. I slammed the car into drive, but before I could press the gas, the passenger hissed, "Don't!" I didn't listen. I hit the accelerator hard, but the car didn't move. The engine revved loudly, the whole vehicle rumbling, but the car stayed still like something massive was holding it in place. My breath fogged the windshield. I hit the pedal again. Still nothing. It felt like the road itself had locked around the wheels. "Let me go," I whispered, voice cracking. The passenger leaned even closer. "He's coming." My hand shook violently on the wheel. I looked up and the figure was at my window, face pressed against the glass, except it had no eyes, just empty dark cavities that somehow looked like they were seeing me. Then it smiled. I screamed. Pure instinct. I kicked my door, slammed my hand on the horn, anything. But the car didn't move. The figure's smile widened, cracked lips peeling back farther than they should have. The passenger whispered, "He wants you to let him in." "Hell no!" I shouted. The figure tapped on the glass, not with a finger, with a knuckle. Slow, deliberate knocks. 1, 2, 3. Each hit harder than the last, like it was testing the strength of the window. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911 so fast I almost dropped it. Before I could hit call, the passenger said, "They won't hear you." My phone's screen flickered, then died black. If these stories made you think twice before booking your next ride, then you're not alone. Make sure you hit that like button because it helps this channel survive the darkness. Subscribe for more real horror every week and drop a comment telling me the scariest ride you've ever taken.